What if I told you that at the very moment Jesus was nailed to that cross, he wasn't surrounded by just Roman soldiers and weeping women? What if I told you that hovering in the unseen realm, just beyond the veil of human sight, above the blood-soaked hill of Golgotha, there were thousands, no, tens of thousands of celestial beings watching in absolute terrifying silence? Angels, warriors who had toppled empires, worshipers who had sung at creation, guardians who had walked with him since Bethlehem, all frozen, all watching, all forbidden to move. You've heard the crucifixion story 1,000 times, but I promise you've never heard it from their perspective. Because hidden in the silence of heaven, in dimensions most people never consider, something was happening that defies everything we thought we knew about that day. So ask yourself, where were the angels when Jesus died? Why didn't they rescue him? What were they doing while their commander bled out between two thieves? And what did their presence at the cross mean for the entire plan of redemption? Stay with me, because once you understand what the angels witnessed at Calvary, you'll never see the cross or your own spiritual battles the same way again. This isn't speculation. This isn't fantasy. Scripture gives us fragments. Ancient texts preserve glimpses, and when you piece them together, you discover that the crucifixion wasn't just a human execution, it was a cosmic event that shook heaven itself. And if you're new here, welcome to Bible Mysteries, the place where we uncover the hidden, the divine, and the supernatural realities tucked away in Scripture. From angelic encounters to prophetic revelations, if it's in the Bible and it's mysterious, you'll find the answers right here. We don't just read the text, we pierce through the veil to see what's happening in the realms beyond. So buckle up, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's go deeper into the forgotten story of the angels at the cross. It started the moment they pressed the wooden beam onto his shoulders. A ripple, a tremor in the unseen realm. Like a shockwave spreading across dimensions, it reached the farthest corners of creation in an instant. And from every direction they came. From the throne room of heaven, where the seraphim cry, "Holy, holy, holy," without ceasing, the archangels descended. Beings of impossible height and radiance, crowned with authority older than the earth itself. Michael, whose very presence had once made mountains bow. Gabriel, who had announced this very moment to a virgin girl 33 years ago. They arrived in the atmosphere above Jerusalem, and the air itself seemed to hold its breath. From the outer courts of glory came the worship leaders, angels who had conducted symphonies of praise since before time began. Their harps were silent now, their songs stuck in their throats. They hovered in the upper reaches of the spiritual sky, watching the procession below with something they had never felt before: dread. Guardian angels materialized next. These were the smaller, swifter beings assigned to walk with humanity. Some had been with Peter when he first met Jesus by the sea. Others had stood watch over John as a child. Many had protected the disciples through storms, through mobs, through assassination attempts. They had succeeded in every mission until now, and now they were being summoned to watch their charge walk to his own execution. Then came the warriors. Oh, the warriors, battalions of them, legion upon legion, each one capable of leveling entire armies with a single breath. They wore armor that pulsed with the light of distant stars, and their swords, still sheathed, hummed with suppressed energy. These were angels who had fought at God's command since the rebellion of Lucifer. They knew war, they knew victory, but this felt like defeat. And as they assembled in the invisible realm above the Via Dolorosa, confusion spread through their ranks like wildfire. One of the guardian angels, small and swift with wings like silver mist, turned to a towering warrior beside him and whispered the question they were all thinking. Why are we here if not to rescue him? The warrior angel said nothing. His hand rested on the hilt of his blade, fingers twitching. He didn't have an answer. Below them, Jesus stumbled. The cross crashed to the dirt. A Roman soldier cursed and yanked him back to his feet. Blood dripped from his forehead where the thorns had torn the flesh, and in the realm above, 10,000 angels flinched. Then they reached Golgotha. The soldiers threw Jesus down onto the wood. An angel near the front, one who had served him food after his temptation in the wilderness, started to descend. His wings snapped open. His hand reached forward. Stop. The command didn't come in a voice. It came as a knowing, a divine restraint that locked every angelic joint in place. No words were spoken, yet every angel understood. Hold, watch, do not interfere. The Roman lifted the hammer, positioned the first nail above Jesus' wrist, and brought it down with a sickening crack. The entire angelic host recoiled as if they had been struck. Some turned away, others fell to their knees mid-air, wings folding in grief. The guardian angels wept openly, tears of liquid light falling toward the earth and vanishing before they touched ground. The warrior angel's hand clenched around his sword, his jaw set, his eyes burned with fury barely contained, but he did not move, because in that moment, every angel realized the horrifying truth. They weren't here to fight, they were here to bear witness. This wasn't a rescue mission, it was a revelation, and their obedience wasn't optional, it was sacred. They were not accustomed to stillness. These warrior angels, these divine instruments of judgment, had been forged in the fires of holy war. They had stood at the gates of Eden with flaming swords that turned in every direction. They had rained fire on Sodom and Gomorrah until nothing remained but ash and smoke. One of them, just one, had walked through the Assyrian camp in a single night and left 185,000 soldiers dead by morning without ever drawing his blade. The enemy had simply ceased to exist in his presence. These were not passive beings. They were weapons, living, breathing extensions of God's wrath and protection. And now they stood in formation above Golgotha, hands resting on sword hilts, every muscle in their celestial bodies coiled like springs, watching their commander, their king, being tortured by mortals. The largest of them, a warrior angel whose armor bore the scars of 1,000 battles, remembered the words Jesus had spoken just hours earlier in the garden. The soldiers had come with torches and swords to arrest him, and Peter had panicked, swinging his blade wildly. Jesus had stopped him with a single sentence that had echoed through the spiritual realm like thunder. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? 12 legions, that was 72,000 angels, and they were here. Not all 12 legions, but enough, more than enough. Enough to turn this hill into a crater, enough to erase Rome from the map, enough to split the sky open and drag every demon in existence into the abyss. But the command had not come. The order to strike had not been given. Instead, there was only that terrible divine restraint pressing down on them like an invisible hand. Hold, stand, watch, do not move. The second nail went in, then the third. Jesus' body convulsed with pain, and from the shadows of the spiritual realm, something else began to gather. They came slithering out of the darkness like smoke given form,
demonic entities, low-level spirits emboldened by what they saw as victory. They had stayed hidden during Jesus' ministry, terrified of his authority. But now, seeing him pinned to wood, bleeding and gasping for air, they grew bold. They circled the cross like vultures, their twisted faces contorted with glee. One of them, a particularly grotesque creature with eyes like coal, hissed toward the angelic host, "Where is your power now? Where is your mighty God? Look at him, helpless, defeated, ours." The angels trembled, not with fear, with rage, pure, white-hot, barely contained rage. The angel who had destroyed the Assyrian army took one step forward. His sword began to glow, heat radiating from it in waves that warped the air. Just one step, just one strike, that's all it would take to silence these parasites forever. But again, the command came, not in words, in presence, in authority that superseded even their fury. Hold. And that's when the warrior angel understood something that made his chest ache with a pain he'd never known. He wasn't powerless because he lacked strength. He was powerless because he lacked permission. And permission was something only one being could grant, the same one currently hanging from a tree, choosing not to speak. This was the agony, not watching Jesus suffer. They had seen suffering before. The agony was having the power to end it and being forbidden to use it. Power without permission isn't power at all. It's torment. And as the demons laughed and the crowd mocked and the soldiers gambled for his clothes, heaven's mightiest warriors stood paralyzed, learning a lesson they would carry for eternity. Sometimes the greatest act of strength is choosing not to fight. But not all the angels gathered above Golgotha were warriors. In the outer rings of the assembly, away from the front lines where the battle-hardened stood rigid with restraint, there were others, smaller, quieter. These were the guardians, the companions, the ones who had walked beside him not in glory, but in dust. One of them hovered closer than the rest, wings trembling like leaves in a storm. She had been there the night he was born. She remembered the smell of hay and animals, the way Mary had wrapped him in strips of cloth with shaking hands, the way he cried, actually cried like any human infant. She had sung over his cradle in Bethlehem while shepherds knelt in wonder. And when Herod's soldiers came with murder in their eyes, she had been the one to whisper the warning into Joseph's dreams. "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt." She had watched him grow, watched him skin his knee as a boy and cry out for his mother, watched him learn to read Torah in the synagogue, his small fingers tracing the ancient words, watched him laugh with other children in Nazareth's dusty streets. For 30 years, she had been close enough to see his humanity, and it had made her love him in a way that transcended duty. Now she watched him bleed, and she didn't understand. Angels don't weep often. Tears require a kind of brokenness they weren't designed to carry. But she wept now, soundless and shaking, unable to look away. Nearby, another guardian angel stood frozen in his own private torment. He had been the one sent to minister to Jesus in the wilderness after 40 days of fasting. He remembered finding him collapsed against a rock, ribs showing through his skin, lips cracked and bleeding for thirst. He had brought him bread, water. He had stayed with him through the night, watching him sleep like a father watches a sick child. And when Jesus woke, he had smiled at him, actually smiled, and said, "Thank you." Now Jesus hung gasping for air, tongue swollen for thirst, and the angel's hands were empty. He had nothing to give. No water, no comfort, no relief. Only the crushing weight of a command he couldn't disobey. Do not intervene. Further back in the assembly was the angel who had been sent to strengthen Jesus in Gethsemane just hours before. He had found him face down in the dirt, sweating drops of blood, begging the Father for another way. The angel had knelt beside him, placed a hand on his trembling shoulder, and poured strength into his human frame, just enough to help him stand, just enough to help him say, "Not my will, but yours." It had been the most sacred moment of the angel's existence, to touch the Son of God in his weakest moment, to be trusted with that intimacy. And now he stood paralyzed, watching Jesus suffer again, forbidden from offering even a whisper of comfort. The cruelty of it crushed him. Below, the soldiers were laughing. They had stripped Jesus naked and were dividing his clothes among themselves, rolling dice to see who would get his seamless tunic. One of them spit in his direction. Another mimicked his earlier words in a mocking voice. He saved others, but he can't save himself. The guardian angels flinched with each insult, as if they themselves were being struck. They had spent years protecting him from harm, guiding his steps away from danger, shielding him from 1,000 unseen threats. And now they stood helpless, while humans, fragile, foolish humans, tortured the one they loved most. Grief is a strange thing for an angel. They had observed it in humans for millennia, watched people mourn their dead, weep over loss, crumble under the weight of sorrow, but they had never truly felt it themselves until now, until watching light itself being extinguished, until witnessing love being murdered by hate. And so they wept, not in voices, in silence. Tears of fire falling through dimensions, grief pouring from beings who were only beginning to understand what it meant to lose someone you would die for, if only they had been allowed to.
Then he screamed. Not a whimper, not a groan, a cry so raw, so utterly broken that it didn't just carry across Golgotha, it tore through the fabric of reality itself. Every angel in creation heard it at the exact same moment, regardless of where they were stationed. The ones above the cross, the ones guarding the gates of heaven, the ones ministering in the farthest reaches of the cosmos. All of them froze as the words ripped through dimensions like a blade through flesh. Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? The angel from Bethlehem collapsed mid-air, her wings folding involuntarily. She had heard Jesus speak thousands of words in his lifetime, words of comfort, of authority, of love, but never this. Never the sound of abandonment in his voice, never the tremor of genuine aloneness. Michael's head snapped toward the cross, his expression frozen between horror and disbelief. In all his eons of existence, through wars and rebellions and cosmic upheavals, he had never heard the Son address the Father like this, as if they were separate, as if the connection had been severed, because it had been. For the first time since eternity past, the Trinity, that perfect, unbreakable union of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, was experiencing fracture. Not dissolution, but separation. The Father had turned his face fully away, and the Son felt it, felt the absence like a wound deeper than the nails in his hands. And in that moment of cosmic divorce, Jesus quoted something the angels recognized. Psalm 22, the prophetic cry of the suffering Messiah, written 1,000 years earlier by David. It was both question and declaration, a genuine expression of agony and a deliberate fulfillment of Scripture. Jesus was announcing to heaven and hell and everything in between, this is the moment. This is the prophecy coming to pass. This is what it costs to save them. Some angels couldn't bear it. They fell from their positions in the sky, dropping to the ground in the spiritual realm, faces pressed into the invisible earth beneath them. They covered their eyes with their wings, as if blocking out the sight could somehow block out the sound still reverberating through their beings. Others turned away entirely, unable to watch. These were beings who had dwelt in the unbroken presence of God since the moment they were created. They had never known separation, never known what it felt like to be cut off from the light. They existed in perpetual connection to the Father, the way a branch exists connected to a tree, inseparable, sustained, whole. But now they were witnessing it, watching their King, who was also God, experience the one thing they had never imagined possible: divine abandonment. And it shattered something in them they didn't know could break. The warrior angels stood rigid, jaws clenched, every fiber of their being screaming to intervene. But the command still held them. Do not move. This must happen. In the Holy of Holies in Jerusalem's temple, where the presence of God had dwelt for centuries, the light suddenly went out. The Shekinah glory that had rested between the cherubim on the mercy seat vanished. Not because God had abandoned Israel, but because he had concentrated all his judgment, all his wrath, all his separation onto one man hanging on a hill outside the city walls. And in that moment of ultimate aloneness, the angels understood something that would haunt them forever. Jesus wasn't crying out because he didn't know the plan. He was crying out because he did. He knew this was necessary. He knew the Father hadn't abandoned him in hatred, but in love. The kind of love that requires distance so that separation itself could be conquered. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. The cry hung in the air, not physically. The humans below barely heard it over the wind, but spiritually it reverberated through every realm, every dimension, every corner of creation. And then, in the wake of that devastating question, came something worse. Silence. The Father did not answer. And in that silence, louder than any sound ever uttered, the angels learned what humans had known since Eden. Sometimes the deepest pain isn't what God does, it's what he doesn't do. What he withholds, even when he loves you, because something greater is being accomplished in the withholding. The angels bowed their heads, not in worship, in grief, because they had just heard the sound of God mourning himself. 3 hours passed in that darkness. 3 hours of silence, broken only by labored breathing and the occasional sob from the women below. The angels remained at their posts, motionless, watching, waiting for something they couldn't name. And then Jesus spoke again. But this time his voice was different, stronger, not the agonized cry of abandonment, but something else. Something that made every angel's head snap up in attention. 3 words in Aramaic,
but carrying the weight of eternity. It is finished. Tetelestai. The humans below heard a dying man's final gasp, but the angels heard something else entirely. They heard a legal term, the same word stamped across bills of sale in the marketplace when a debt was paid in full. The same word written across court documents when justice had been satisfied. The same word shouted in victory when a task was completed beyond dispute. Not I am finished, not I am defeated, but it is finished. The work, the plan, the price, paid in full. Michael's eyes widened, his grip on reality itself, the invisible force he'd been using to hold creation together, suddenly wasn't needed anymore. The universe wasn't collapsing, it was shifting, realigning. Something fundamental in the spiritual architecture of existence had just changed, and he felt it like tectonic plates moving beneath his feet. The guardian angel from Gethsemane gasped as understanding flooded through her. This wasn't an execution, this was an exchange. Every sin that had been placed on Jesus, every ounce of guilt, shame, and corruption had been absorbed, taken in, owned. And now, with his final breath, he was declaring the transaction complete. The debt of humanity paid, the penalty for sin satisfied, the separation between God and man abolished. And then, as if to confirm what the angels were only beginning to understand, something impossible happened in the temple. The veil tore. Not from bottom to top, as if human hands had ripped it, from top to bottom. The massive curtain, 60 feet tall, 4 inches thick, woven so tightly it would take teams of oxen pulling in opposite directions to tear it, split down the middle, as if invisible fingers had simply shredded it like paper. The sound echoed through Jerusalem like thunder, and the priests inside stumbled backward in terror. But the angels watching the Holy of Holies saw what the priests couldn't. They saw the angelic guards who had stood at that threshold for centuries, beings assigned to enforce the separation between holy God and sinful man, suddenly receive a command they never expected: stand down. Their assignment was over. The barrier they had been commissioned to protect no longer had purpose, because there was no separation to enforce. The way into God's presence, which had been blocked since Eden, was now open. Not because humanity had become worthy, but because someone had paid the price to make them worthy. One of the guardian angels whispered in awe, "Wait, he's winning?" It seemed insane. Jesus hung dead on a cross, his body broken, his blood poured out. By every measure visible to the natural eye, this was defeat. Catastrophic, humiliating, total defeat. But in the spiritual realm, something else was becoming clear. This wasn't the end of the story. This was the turning point. The moment when what looked like loss was actually the greatest victory ever achieved. The warrior angels began to straighten. Their posture shifted from grief to something else. Not quite understanding yet, but sensing it. The way a soldier senses the tide of battle turning before he can see the evidence. There was a charge in the air, an anticipation. Michael looked toward the cross one more time, seeing Jesus' head bowed, his body still, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he smiled. Not with joy, not yet, but with recognition, because he had just witnessed something that would echo through eternity. The King of Glory had conquered death by dying. He had defeated sin by becoming it. He had won the war by surrendering the battle. And now, in the terrible silence following those 3 words, "It is finished," heaven held its breath. Because if the work was truly complete, then what came next would shatter hell itself. The moment Jesus' spirit left his body, something unprecedented happened. A door opened. Not a physical door, but a threshold between realms that had always existed but never been crossed in this direction. The living went down to death, but the dead never came back up. Until now. Jesus descended, not as a victim dragged to judgment, but as a conqueror entering enemy territory. His spirit, still bearing the scars of the cross, still glowing with authority despite what he just endured, moved downward through layers of reality most beings never see. Down past the natural world, down past the atmospheric heavens where angels dwell, down into Sheol, the realm of the dead. And he wasn't alone. Michael went with him, not because Jesus needed protection, but because heaven needed witnesses. Behind Michael came a select company of angels, warriors, guardians, messengers, chosen to see what no angelic being had ever seen before, the inside of death's domain. The moment they crossed the threshold, they felt it. Cold. Not temperature, but absence. Absence of life, of hope, of like. Sheol was a realm built on endings, and everything about it screamed wrong to beings who had only known eternity. But as they descended deeper, following the radiant form of Jesus ahead of them, their own light began to penetrate the darkness. Angelic glory, pure, undiluted, holy fire, flooded into corridors that had known only shadow since the first human died. And everywhere that light touched, something shifted. Sheol was divided. On one side, the compartment of torment, a place of anguish where the wicked waited in conscious suffering. On the other side, separated by an impassable gulf, was Abraham's bosom, the place of peace where the righteous dead had rested for centuries, waiting for a promise they had died believing but never received. And now, shining in the distance, they saw a figure approaching, a figure that looked like a man but radiated the glory of God himself. "Is it?" Abraham whispered, barely able to form the words. Moses stood beside him, eyes wide. He had seen God's glory on the mountain, had spoken with him face to face, and he recognized this light. "It's him! He's here!" David, the shepherd king, fell to his knees. He had written about this moment in Psalms he didn't fully understand. "You will not abandon my soul to Sheol, nor let your Holy One see corruption." He had believed it, sung it, prophesied it, and now it was standing before him. Then they saw something else. Behind Jesus, moving with purpose and power, were angels. Michael's massive form, sword still sheathed but radiating authority. Guardian angels whose light filled the caverns of death with warmth the righteous hadn't felt since their last breath on earth. "Angels," Moses breathed. "I haven't seen angels since you died," Abraham finished. "None of us have." On the other side of the gulf, in the place of torment, The demonic forces stationed there began to panic. They had grown comfortable in Sheol. It was their territory, their prison for the damned. The dead didn't fight back. The darkness was absolute, but now light was invading. And worse, far worse, the dead man they thought they'd defeated was walking through their domain, glowing with power. One demon shrieked at another, "Why is he here? He's supposed to be dead." "He is dead," hissed back, "but look at him. The dead don't glow with authority. The dead don't—" It stopped mid-sentence as Jesus turned his gaze toward the torment side of the gulf, not with hatred, with something more terrifying, inevitability. The demons recoiled, pressing themselves against the walls of their own domain as if they could sink into the stone and disappear. Michael stepped forward, positioning himself between Jesus and the cowering demons. His voice, when he spoke, wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of heaven itself. He is here by right, by sacrifice, by victory, and you will not interfere. The demons didn't answer. They couldn't, because they had just realized what the angels were only beginning to understand. Death's domain wasn't a prison for Jesus. It was his battlefield, and he hadn't come to escape it. He had come to conquer it from within. Jesus looked at Abraham, at Moses, at David, at the countless righteous who had waited in faith, and he smiled. The same smile he'd given the guardian angel in the wilderness. The smile that said, "Thank you for waiting. I'm here now." And then he moved toward the gates. They were ancient, older than human memory, older than the flood. Gates forged in the moment death first entered creation, when Adam's sin opened a door that never existed before. Gates that swung open millions of times to receive the dead, but never, not once, opened to release them. Jesus stood before them now. Behind him, the righteous dead. Behind them, Michael and the angels, wings spread, ready to fight. The demons cowered in the shadows, knowing something was about to happen, but powerless to stop it. And then Jesus spoke, not in Aramaic, not in Hebrew, in a language older than human tongues, the language of heaven itself. The words resonated through every dimension of Sheol. "Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." The angels gasped. They knew those words, Psalm 24. David had written them 1,000 years ago, inspired by the Spirit, prophesying this exact moment without fully understanding it. But the angels had sung that psalm in worship countless times, never imagining they would witness its fulfillment in the belly of death itself. The gates trembled, not from wind, from recognition, because these weren't just barriers of stone and iron. They were spiritual constructs held in place by legal rights, the rights that sin and death had claimed over humanity since Eden. Rights that said, the wages of sin is death. The guilty must remain. But Jesus wasn't guilty. He had taken guilt upon himself, yes, borne it, absorbed it, satisfied its penalty. And now, having paid the price in full, he was exercising the authority that payment had earned him. He didn't ask for permission, didn't negotiate, didn't plead. He reached out his hand, scarred, nail-pierced, still bleeding in the spirit, and took what was his by right. The keys. They materialized in his grip, not metal, but something more solid than any earthly substance.
keys of authority, keys of jurisdiction, the keys to death and Hades that had been held by the enemy since the fall. Satan had wielded them like a tyrant, locking souls away, gloating over every name added to his ledger. But now, as Jesus' fingers closed around them, Satan felt them torn from his grasp. He tried to hold on, actually tried, but it was like a child trying to wrestle a sword from a warrior. There was no contest, no struggle, just inevitable transfer. "No!" the enemy shrieked from somewhere in the darkness. "You can't! You died! You're bound by the same law! Death has no exceptions!" Michael stepped forward, his voice like thunder. "The price is paid. The law is satisfied. The exchange is complete. This is lawful." Jesus didn't even look at Satan. He simply turned the keys, and everything broke. Chains that had bound the souls of the righteous for generations snapped like thread. Prison doors that had sealed the dead away from life exploded open. The entire structure of death's kingdom, built on debt and guilt and legal accusation, collapsed under the weight of one truth: the debt no longer existed. Light flooded Sheol, not the dim glow of angelic presence, but blazing, transforming resurrection light. It poured from Jesus like water from a broken dam, washing over Abraham, Moses, David, every prophet, every faithful believer who had died trusting in a promise they'd never seen fulfilled. And then they began to rise. Not metaphorically, literally. Their spirits, dormant, waiting, confined, suddenly ignited with life. They stood taller, stronger. The weariness of death fell away like old clothes. Abraham looked at his hands and saw them glowing. Moses felt strength he hadn't known since climbing Mount Nebo. David laughed, actually laughed for centuries. Then they saw something else. Behind Jesus, moving with purpose and power, were angels. Michael's massive form, sword still sheathed but radiating authority. Guardian angels whose light filled the caverns of death with warmth the righteous hadn't felt since their last breath on earth. "Angels," Moses breathed.
The guardian angel from Bethlehem wept again, but this time with joy, because now she understood everything. The birth in the stable, the flight to Egypt, the years of watching him grow, the agony in Gethsemane, the silence at the cross, the descent into death, all of it had been leading here, to this moment, to the greatest jailbreak in history. Jesus turned to face the righteous, keys in hand, victory in his eyes, and he said one word: "Come." And they followed him, out of Sheol, out of death, out of the grave, a parade of the redeemed marching behind their Redeemer, with angels flanking them on every side, and demons fleeing before them like shadows before the sun. Michael raised his sword, not to fight, but to salute, because he had just witnessed the impossible. Death hadn't defeated the king had defeated death from the inside by dying, and now nothing would ever be the same. 3 days, the angels counted every hour, 72 hours of waiting, watching the sealed tomb, knowing what was coming but unable to move until the appointed time. The stone was massive, a wheel of rock weighing over a ton, rolled into a groove and sealed with Roman authority. Guards stood watch, spears in hand, terrified of what their commanders would do if they failed their duty. But the angels weren't watching the guards. They were watching the tomb, waiting for the signal. And at dawn on the third day, it came. The earth convulsed, not the violent shaking of judgment like at the Crucifixion, but something different, something anticipatory, like creation itself was inhaling before a shout of joy. And in that moment, one angel, just one, received the command he'd been aching to hear for 3 days. Go, move the stone. He descended like lightning, not metaphorically. His appearance was literal fire, his clothes radiating light so bright they looked like fresh snow under the sun. The Roman guards saw him coming and collapsed, not from the impact, but from sheer terror. Their minds couldn't process what they were seeing. Grown soldiers, trained killers, reduced to unconscious heaps by the mere presence of a single angel. But the angel barely noticed them. He had a job to do. He reached the stone, the massive barrier meant to seal death forever, and with one hand, as if moving a pebble, rolled it away. The grinding of rock on rock echoed through the garden, and the tomb stood open. Not to let Jesus out, he was already gone. The angel knew that. He could feel the absence of the body, the lingering warmth of resurrection power still humming in the air. No, the stone wasn't moved for Jesus. It was moved for the witnesses, for the women who were even now making their way up the path, carrying spices to anoint a body they thought was still dead. Mary Magdalene arrived first. She saw the open tomb and froze, her jar of spices slipping from her hands. The angel sat on the stone, casual, almost playful in his posture, and smiled at her shock. Then he spoke the words that would echo through history. He is not here. He has risen. Mary's knees buckled. Behind her, the other women gasped, clutching each other. One of them stammered, "But where?" Another angel appeared inside the tomb itself, Michael's second in command, assigned to this exact moment. His voice was gentle but firm. "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen, just as he said." The women stared, unable to move, unable to speak. And then Mary turned and ran, not away, toward the disciples, toward hope, toward the impossible news that death had lost. But before she left the garden, she saw him, Jesus, standing by the trees, his form solid and real and gloriously alive. She fell at his feet, weeping, and he spoke her name with such tenderness that every angel within a mile radius felt their hearts break and mend simultaneously. The guardian angel from Bethlehem wept again, but this time with joy, because now she understood everything. The birth in the stable, the flight to Egypt, the years of watching him grow, the agony in Gethsemane, the silence at the cross, the descent into death, all of it had been leading here, to this moment, to the greatest jailbreak in history. In the courts of heaven, something shifted. The silence that had gripped the angelic host for 3 days shattered like glass. Music erupted. Not the familiar songs of worship they'd sung for eons, but something new, something that had never existed before because the event it celebrated had never happened before. "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain," they sang, their voices shaking the foundations of reality. "Worthy to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing." Michael stood at attention, sword raised, leading the anthem. The warrior angels who had been forced to stand down now exploded into celebration, their restraint finally released. The worship leaders who had been silent struck their harps with such force the notes rang like thunder.
And in that moment of cosmic jubilation, the angels received their new commission, not spoken in words, but understood in their spirits. You are no longer just guardians of the Son. You are now ministers to those He has redeemed. Every human who believes, every soul who calls on His name, every heir of salvation, you will serve them, not because they earned it, because He did. The angels looked at each other with wonder. Serve humans? The beings who had caused all this pain? The ones whose sin had required this sacrifice? Yes, because that's what the cross had proven. That's what the resurrection had sealed. Humanity wasn't just forgiven, they were adopted, elevated, made co-heirs with the King who conquered death.
And the angels would spend eternity learning to love what Jesus had died to save. So now you know, the cross wasn't just a moment in history, it was a cosmic event that forever altered the relationship between heaven, earth, and the realm of the dead. And the angels who witnessed it, who stood paralyzed in holy obedience, who wept over their commander's suffering, who watched him invade death and strip it of its power, those angels haven't forgotten what they saw. They carry that testimony with them into every assignment, every moment, every encounter with humanity. And here's what that means for you right now, today, in whatever battle you're facing. You are never fighting alone. Never. The same angels who stood guard while Jesus hung dying have been commissioned to minister to you, not because you deserve it, but because He paid for it. Hebrews 1:14 says it clearly. Angels are ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation. That's you. If you belong to Jesus, angels are assigned to your life, watching, protecting, enforcing the victory He already won. Your silence has purpose. The angels had to restrain their power when every instinct screamed to intervene. Sometimes your greatest act of faith isn't fighting back, it's standing still, waiting in the tension, trusting that what looks like inaction is actually divine strategy unfolding in realms you can't see. The angels learned that lesson at the cross. Maybe you're learning it now. What looks like defeat might be your setup for victory. The angels thought it was over when Jesus died. They were devastated, confused, but 3 days later they realized the death they mourned was actually the doorway to triumph. Your darkest hour, the one you're in right now, or the one you remember with pain, might not be the end of your story. It might be the hinge, the moment everything turns, just like it did at the cross. You have witnesses. Hebrews 12:1 talks about a great cloud of witnesses watching how we run our race. The angels who stood at Calvary now watch how you carry your cross, not with judgment, but with understanding. They've seen what suffering can produce. They've watched death become resurrection, and they're watching you, cheering you on, knowing something you might not see yet. Your pain has purpose, and your story isn't over. Resurrection is coming. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead, the power the angels witnessed explode through the tomb, is available to you. Paul prayed in Ephesians that believers would comprehend the incomparably great power for us who believe, the same power that raised Christ from the dead. That power isn't just historical, it's present, active, working in you right now, even if you can't feel it yet. Picture this. Right now, as you read these words, angels surround you, not because you're perfect, not because you've earned it, but because you're redeemed. They saw what it cost. They watched the blood fall from His hands. They witnessed the keys being ripped from death's grip.
They stood at the empty tomb and sang the new song. And now there is assigned to you an heir of salvation, purchased by the Lamb, carried by the same hands that conquered hell. If this opened your eyes to the invisible realm, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because somewhere, right now, someone is in their darkest hour. They feel alone, abandoned, defeated. They don't know that heaven is watching, that angels are standing guard, that the same victory won at Calvary is available to them. You could be the voice that reminds them. Drop a comment below. Which moment shook you the most? Was it the angels weeping as they watched him bleed? The descent into Sheol where death itself was invaded? Or the moment Jesus took the keys and everything broke? I want to hear what gripped your heart. Let's talk about it. And if you want more of this, more hidden mysteries, more forgotten truths, more of the supernatural realities woven through Scripture that most people never see, hit that subscribe button, because what we're uncovering next will absolutely blow your mind. The veil is thinner than you think, and once you start seeing what's really happening in the unseen realm, you'll never read your Bible the same way again. The angels are watching. The story continues, and you're part of it now.